some of the bombs. So anyway, go ahead. All right.
Yeah, so we're live now, and I am joined today by Patty and Mark, who are the filmmakers behind Nectarball. And I'm really excited to have you both here today to tell the listeners of Bite Me a little bit more about yourselves in this documentary that you took 7 years to produce. And maybe you can just start out by introducing yourselves to the listeners of Bite Me and tell us a little bit about your own cannabis journey and what brought you to doing this documentary in the first place.
Pat, you want to start? Ladies first.
Oh my, I'm Patty Mooney, and I'm a co-producer and editor of Nectarball, the Story of Cannabis, along with a few other cannabis-related films. And well, cannabis isn't our only focus. We've been producing films since 1982 together via our company, Crystal Pyramid Productions, and our other company that distributed our tapes at the time, VHS tapes, New and Unique Videos. And how the idea came for cannabis, the cannabis Nectarball, the Story of Cannabis film, I'll leave that to Mark.
I'm Mark Schulze, producer and director of photography. I did the filming around the world for Nectarball, the Story of Cannabis. This is the DVD, and we did interviews with Tommy Chong and John Sally and Raphael Mechoulam before he passed away, and Nurse Heather and Ed Rosenthal, and you name it, Gigo Betty. There's great people from all over the world, South Africa, South America. Of course, the Emerald Cup was kind of where we got our start. In 2016, I went up there, Tim Blake's little Emerald Cup up in Santa Rosa, and went to the history section. I gravitated there, met a lot of OG cannabis, aficionados, connoisseurs, growers like myself. And I started back when I was a kid, like 15 years old, when I first tried pot and got my first little bud that I got from my aunt in 1972 before I even smoked it. I didn't really even smoke until 74, pot, and growing it back in 74. And anyway, the 2016 went to the Emerald Cup and met all these wonderful people and told them about my collection of old buds, the Nectarball collection, and they said, "Wow, that's amazing. I've never heard of anybody that's got that." And so I did a little filming then in 2016, and then told Patty we got to go back in 2017 and bring our green screen and our bigger professional equipment, professional equipment we use for Crystal Pyramid to do our corporate clients videos. And we said let's take this up there, big green screen, lighting, sound, everything, and interview all these luminaries up there, because there's like fantastic people. I said they're all gathered together at one place. So Tim Blake gave us a little room in the back, and we set everything up and made it as soundproof as we could, and just started pulling people in from, Swami Select and his wife, and growers from the Humboldt Five. And Patty can tell you all these people, because she ended up having to transcribe 165 interviews over 6 years of traveling the world, getting all these interviews. And so we just started in 2017 filming for it, and then went all the way until about 2023, she was editing. We still gathered a few interviews and things in Amsterdam. And so we were from Europe, South America. The last place we did was South Africa, Cape Town area, Namibia, all these places. And they had some legalized dispensary type social clubs too. So all that put together, and it was wonderful people. We do no narration. Patty took all those transcripts and spent about a year and a half editing this after she got the pearls of about 65 of the 165. So we did another thing with people that didn't make the cut. Patty edited up a bunch of what we call Canna Minutes. We put that on Citizen Green TV, citizengreen.tv, Steve Peterson and those people. So they've got the Canna Minutes along with, you can see it also, redcoraluniverse.com. And of course, our website, nectarball.com. And that's kind of how we started and got into the movie. And then Pat made a short 10-minute one called Fighting Cancer with Cannabis. That one we put in San Francisco Festival, and then put that out on a few shows. People, I'm not buying. That's only 10 minutes, so it wasn't really. It's not like something Amazon Prime wanted, whereas they wanted Nectarball: The Story of Cannabis, which is an 83 or 82-minute documentary. And again, we don't do narration. We let the experts and the pros and the nurses and the scientists and the growers and all the other OG people talk and tell us. And then we did an offshoot of 12 Black Cannabis Visionaries with John Sally, and we did a few more interviews at MJ BizCon, where we just released that one. That was 2025. However, we took that down off of many sites other than Red Coral Universe because there's only 38 minutes, because we wanted to make a 60-minute version because it would be easier to distribute worldwide that way, a 60-minute. So we have to get some more footage. So that'll probably be coming out in 2026 or re-released as a longer version. And that's pretty much our journey of cannabis-centric documentaries and, as Pat would say, films, even though nobody shoots film anymore. But our background is in educational documentaries, shows that we used to release in VHS starting in 1985 with Common Sense Self-Defense for Women and Pat's Massage for Relaxation video. And then we did one called California Big Hunks, which was a crazy fun one that was like before Chippendales. No nudity, but they 6 sexy stripper guys, California Big Hunks, stripped down. And that's also out there in the market. If you look for California Big Hunks, that was a fun one in 85. And a few others we did. And then a bunch of mountain biking videos. The ultimate mountain biking video followed before that, the great mountain biking video. And then Full Cycle World Odyssey. We went around the world on our mountain bikes, kind of like Endless Summer on mountain bikes. And that one just got picked up by a bunch of places too, including Amazon Prime. So we're doing okay, but you don't make a documentary, by the way, as Patty will tell you too, to make any money. It's we probably put in $250,000 at making the film, and we've probably seen a few $100 so far. But we really want it to be seen by people, so hopefully your viewers will check it out, because it's, as you can attest, seeing it yourself, how good a documentary it is, and how it can help the world be a better place with cannabis in it.
And it sounds, I did have the opportunity to watch the film myself, and it was great. And it sounds like it took you all over the world while you're producing this documentary. And as you mentioned already, 7 years it took to put this movie out. Were there any big misconceptions that you had going into the project that completely changed by the end?
Patty,
one of the things that struck me was just a quote by a cultivator named Matt Gress, that he had gone into the CanMed and seen a presenter who said, you can eat the herb that's in a plastic baggie in your pocket right now and get benefits just from eating the plant. And another grower, Sunshine Saraseta, said one of the most amazing things you could do is juice it. And so the plant itself, as you know, you have your focus on edibles, contains so many cannabinoids in its raw state. Mm-hmm. So we always thought it had to be fired up to give you benefits. No, the whole plant, and the male plant has benefits too. I mean, this plant is meant for us. It's medicine.
That is pretty interesting that you mentioned that, because people really don't talk about consuming THCA or CBDA, or the other plant compounds before they're decarboxylized. We're always setting it on fire or baking it in the oven. So that's pretty interesting. And a good thing to point out, because I'm growing some plants right now, and I've decided I'm going to try some juicing of those leaves once I harvest and stuff. So that is very insightful. Now, you two have been together.
Right?
Yeah. You two have been together for 43 years, and you describe yourselves as experts in high quality living. How did creating this documentary shift your personal relationship with cannabis?
Good question. I'd say starting out, Pat. You jump in anytime. I mean, I always say like love is all there is. I mean, period. You're on this planet for a short period of time, and like in the movie The Notebook, you if you get put yourself in the right place and you meet the love of your life. And in my case, I made my wish on my little crystal, and I go, hey, I want to meet my soulmate on before Valentine's Day, 9 months before, and then all of a sudden, poof, on Valentine's Day, I'm filming for the World Hunger Project at a little theater called the La Paloma here in Encinitas, near San Diego, and there she was, one of the actors, singers, and I fell madly in love just at sight. They say fall at sight. You see someone but I didn't want her to freak her out and say something like that, so I invited her out to dinner, and we hung out. And she had a bunch of boyfriends, but we ended up being together since Valentine's Day of 1982. So love is there, and that's the most important thing. And then teaming up to do things afterwards to decide, like, well, what do you want to do? And high quality life is trying to live every day. I mean, like almost like if it could be your last. I mean, none of us know you get hit by a lightning or meteor, but not likely. So if you're going to live, you might as well make every day count. And eat right, exercise, have fun, go out in nature a lot. Those are all things that we do to live a high quality life. Like later today, we're going to be on a mountain bike ride with a few friends nearby here, and just get back out in nature. We try to go out in nature at least twice a week, if you count our backyard, which is over a canyon, then we are in nature every day. And I go out gardening like you, got my little plants, and just try to. It's such a beautiful plant, and that's the first one I grew when I was a little kid. I didn't want to kill, and that's how I found out that they could turn into buds. Happened to be a female one. I don't want to kill it. It just gets better and better, it seems. What is this sticky stuff? And that's where I came up with the name Nectarball, because there's these they started turning little balls, and they were sticky, and that sticky. I go, what is that? It's THC resin capsules on the trichomes. I don't know those words. I read all the books I could get on cannabis after that. And when I was going to school at UCSD, and then grew a huge crop out in the mountains, then it got busted the second year because in San Diego, there's no place to hide your buds. I mean, like this was a picture from 1979 of the buds, and as you can see in the background, there's no trees. Well, this is kind of out of focus. I don't know if the camera should focus on this, but anyway, there it goes. In the background, you don't see it. It's all just mountains like this one. And that's me, there in the mountains. There's no trees. You can't hide your pot. So we got busted. But anyway, that right after that, I met Patty, and we've been together ever since, having a great time. Pat, you chime in any?
Okay.
We don't have kids, by the way. That's another, it makes it easier for us. Our
Right.
kids are plants, I guess.
Yeah.
Our films are our children. It's our art form. It's our way of giving back to the world, leaving the world a better place with us in it, as opposed to some of the stuff going on right nowadays with a lot of people.
So
Right.
the high quality life for me is it's a double entendre, right? High. It's nice to be high because your perspective of the world is kind of like you have a wider, higher perspective of it, and you're not like so diminished as to be depressed or lost. You're part of it. You're part of it all. So when we went into our mode of talking to people and learning while we were filming this project, we learned about how it's not. There are so many more delivery systems of the plant than just smoking it. You can eat it. You can spread it on your skin. You can take little drops, tinctures. So Mark started making some tinctures and balms because with our mountain biking career over the last, since 1986, we've been mountain biking together. You get your aches and pains. It's an inherently very dangerous sport. You crash a couple times here and there.
But you're working that jackhammer, going over rocks.
So my shoulders are really worked, and so I use the balm on that. I take the tinctures every night. He makes the sleepy blend and helps me sleep through the night. No more insomnia, no more pain at night that keeps me awake. So it's, I mean, I hesitate to use the word miraculous, but like I said before, this plant is made for humans. The cannabinoids, the cannabinoid receptors we have in our bodies, that's another thing we learned about the endocannabinoid system that most doctors have no clue about because it can't be taught in medical school, because it's been on this horrible list as a negative drug, which is
Schedule one.
insane. Insane. Why would we chop off our own nose to spite our face? I mean,
And
Yeah.
also, I made Pat. Well, before I did the tinctures and whatnot, I'd make brownies. Of course, everybody's done classic brownie mix, and carboxylized pot, and everything. And so she'd take a little square because it's pretty powerful. You do it right with it, and with the right amount in the oils, and gave some to our friends, and everybody seems to love it. Like and Margaret, you can obviously talk, and you do, about consuming edibles in a tasty way. I'm
Yeah.
sure we can all learn from you, taste your ways to do it too.
Yeah,
So,
I love that you brought up the topicals as well, because I feel like any aging adult, and I put myself in this category. I mean, don't know if I could survive the day without my topicals as well. So, it's such a gentle and approachable way to get into cannabis. And I maybe hesitate to use the word miraculous as well, because it doesn't necessarily help all the physical ailments that we have. But for those that find relief through topicals, it really is miraculous, honestly. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. Now, in
you
the
have a jar
process
of
of
that, Pat? The nectar bomb. We made some of that, and my soccer players love putting on their knees. Us old
Yeah.
soccer players over 60s, so
Right.
these guys over the 40, they're going, "Hey man, this is great for my knees."
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
No, any of
sorry
those
about
knees and joints, it's
Yep.
topicals are pretty a must have in anybody's arsenal of medical help. But now, for the documentary, you interviewed, as you already mentioned, over 165 cannabis luminaries, but you were only able to feature about 52 in the final cut. So what kinds of stories or perspectives didn't make it in, and why? And now it does sound like, when you were talking in the beginning, Mark, that you are going to be releasing some of these interviews that didn't make it, but was there anything in particular why they didn't make it into the original documentary?
I'm going to let Patty answer that, but I will say before that because it was mainly her decision based on the transcripts and what the flow, from history, from the past to the present to the future, and wanting to make sure we gave a voice to everybody, including farmers, which have never gotten a voice in any other movies per se, usually, that I know of at least. And so we did all that, and also, if we can get funding, because it's all been self-funded, from work that we've done for other people and groups and corporations, of which we took those profits and put them into making this movie. It's a labor of love, passion project, as they often called. And we thought we could do a series. So there's, we even did one. We've even got Pat's got one, but we're having some problems with the legalities on Ed Rosenthal, because he's got a great story. Obviously, Ed Rosenthal versus the feds, and the 12 Black Cannabis Visionaries, and fighting cancer with cannabis. So we could actually, we have ideas for like another 10-part series, but we'd have to get money together to get that, because we can't do it all by ourselves this next time. We're getting too old, and it's a lot of work, and it burns you out if you don't have a little help. So, Patty, you go ahead now. You can answer that wonderful question about why are some people on the cutting room floor at this point in time?
Well, just based on duplicate material. And so I would choose the person who had the most succinct and elegant way of saying it. If there were people who kind of that didn't quite make it, then so basically that was it. And then I always had in mind that certain people spoke about certain things, like their time in jail. And so I wanted to preserve that for a video on its own about the incarceration of people, farmers, the domestic terrorism that was imposed by our own government. Helicopters dropping out of the sky, dropping people out of the sky to terrorize farmers. This is like, oh, your tomato plants, we're going to arrest you over because cannabis is like a tomato plant.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that that is still going on. People are still incarcerated over a plant. That is, we have to get them out, and we have to really wrestle with this topic because this plant is our birthright.
Part of our history.
Sorry, go ahead, Mark. Yeah.
It's a part of the history of America, and even Dan Hare. I mean, he showed a $10 bill from the 30s where it shows guys growing hemp on the back of the bill.
Right.
Like that was part of our thing, Not
Yeah.
to mention Constitution and sails for the ships that brought the Pilgrims here in the first place. So, no, it's in our DNA. It was Jefferson, Washington. We start with those quotes in the movie. It's an important hemp and all that was it. And cannabis, they used the flower as well as the hemp. So
yeah, hemp is it's a real loss that we haven't been able to go back to that era where we've used hemp for so many things, because it would be so much more environmentally friendly for what we're doing today. But we'll get there slowly. If
this hat's made out of hemp, I think out of Canada.
Oh, great! Yeah,
bought the blanks and then we put the logos and stuff on
yeah,
there.
it's a fantastic material. I have sneakers made out of hemp as well, which I love. And you're starting to see more products coming out made with hemp, but it would be nice to see a lot more. But back to the people that you're interviewing, were there any interviews that were a little too controversial or legally sensitive to include in the documentary?
I don't think so per se, because I think the way Patty structured the timeline on the edit, and try to keep everything tight and great, and the best people on the topics, and the experts and scientists and doctors and nurses, especially the nurses, the Cannabis Nurses Network, Nurse Heather, Ken Solber, her husband, wonderful person, said, hey, look at whether you know it or not, consuming cannabis is healthy for you. It's going to have medicinal benefits. So, those quotes, and I mean, we're learning along the way too. I mean, I was been growing since I was a kid, but I learned all kinds of things that I didn't know a whole lot of stuff about terpenes and stuff. I just grew it because I like to smell them. When I first grew the first plants I did, they were they were all sativa and they smelled like pine trees. That was the terpene. And then later I got some Afghanistan hash plant seeds in 76. So I grew some in 77 or 78. So maybe 78. So it was just amazing. Like, wow, this stuff is incredible. I mean, it just smelled like a skunk. And one leaf could cover your head, where the sativa ones were thin. And this is the original before it all got hybridized like nowadays. So a big leaf smelled just like a skunk. And I'm like, wow, did it knock you out on your butt? The whole different high, because that was an indica. And that was pure 1, 2. After that, the people said, oh, you can't grow those together. You can't crossbreed. And I found out you could. I didn't do it on purpose. It just happened. So then all the plants started becoming a little taller and thinner, and not the big leaf that could cover your head. And the smells started blending. And, so nowadays I would say that, I don't know, they have thousands of names of stuff. Back in the days when we were doing it, be 1 or 2 varieties of something coming out. South America generally for California. I can talk to you more about that because that's part of the Nectarball collection. All these old buds I've got, including like a tie stick from 1978. That impresses people, So that's kind of fun. And then, Colombian gold, and that's even got the seeds in it. That bud's special. So, but we could talk about that later. Anyway.
I do have one note about that. When we first started to interview people, it was, Mark had a camera with him in 2016 at the Emerald Cup, and then we brought the full gear extravaganza in 2017. And there's a big issue about trust. I mean, people opening their hearts and spilling their secrets about cannabis because it's been dangerous for so long to talk about it even.
Yeah, the stigma and the jail
trust
time.
us as fellow OGs. I don't think anybody who wasn't familiar, knew, had a relationship with cannabis would be able to pull this off.
Yeah,
Right.
they respected the fact that I knew about it, but I could show them pictures of actual buds. They said they still exist. Oh yeah, with seeds. Oh my God, never heard. Say, hey, have you heard of it? Nope, never heard of it. So they like even Penske's like he wanted to look me up before he did the interview. He wanted to check me out to make sure. Next day we came back because we came back in 2018 too at the Emerald Cup and did interviews again, and little shout outs to Tim Blake and his Emerald Cup at the time. But people they responded well, and they said, oh yeah, you're the real deal, so well, ask me anything you want, because again it's still pretty illegal back even 16 17 and 8 2018 those. Yeah, it was medically okay, and we were in California, but like you said, I mean, people were getting life sentences for a single seed in Texas, in the
Right, which
70s.
is crazy. The trust factor is pretty huge. It's an interesting thing that you bring up because people had to trust you that you would safeguard their stories and present them in an honest way. And yeah, depending on where they were from or where they were living, they could definitely be taking a risk by doing that. But that also helps break the stigma as well, doesn't it? When people are able to open up and say, hey, even if you're not a famous person, this is me and I use cannabis. Because one thing I've learned from doing this podcast is people from all walks of life use cannabis, whether it's just topicals or whether they're smoking a joint every night or whether they're wake and baking or whatever. Yeah, people from all walks of life are using cannabis. So it's important to share these stories, I think, so that those who are still in the shadows or maybe even just considering cannabis have role models of other people who are doing it. And, you know, they haven't succumbed to the reefer madness that we are all told would happen if
Yeah,
if we took
rebounding.
cannabis.
Well,
Yeah.
that was it's funny you say that. A lot of famous people. I mean, back when I was 20, I met Cheech and Chong at a concert in Vegas, and they knew my aunt was in the committee, which was told them about that, and they got a lot of their earlier funny stuff on their records from the committee, like Herbie and Ralph the dog, all the skits, a bunch of them, not all of them, of course, and they invited me to the La Jolla Comedy Club when they came in. And I was 20. They said, as long as you don't drink alcohol. I said, I don't care. I smoke pot. So we'd get high afterwards. They never get high before. They're very professional, and we party. And I got to know Cheech and Chong that way. So I was 20 and Tommy was 40. And flash forward, Pat and I went up to LA to interview him when I was 60 and he was 80.
Wow, that's cool.
And now I'm 66, almost 67. So, that was kind of a neat, 40 years later, suddenly. And these guys were always putting themselves out there before anybody. I mean, obviously Cheech and Chong are the famous stoners, and Tommy had to do time for it. Stupid bong crap. Give me a break. Oh, I sold a bong across the state line. He took the hit, so his kids didn't have to suffer or anybody else. And what a wonderful guy. Those guys always used to go to prisons and help convicts, with comedy. They donated their time, and back in the day before their movies came out. Once their movies came out, it became really difficult. They got real famous.
I'm sure they got pretty busy after that.
Yeah,
But that's pretty cool that you're able to see them perform like in a comedy, like at a comedy theater back in the day, like before they were famous.
Yeah, well, they were famous, but we could hang out afterwards and smoke a joint, and nobody bothered us.
Right. Yeah, they weren't famous after doing their movies famous, I guess.
Yeah, that was big. That was a big step. Now they're filling up, huge theaters as opposed to the little comedy club.
And don't forget to mention that they used your plants to model their plants.
Yeah, I had a plant, or I had a couple plants. I showed them some black and white pictures of this particular plant. Actually, this is in 1978, and Cheech called it the plant that ate Chicago, and I took a black and white picture that I don't have here that was lower, and it looked huge, like it was looming, because all the leaves were hanging down, and I showed them. I gave them a bunch of black and whites that they were able to use for their Cheech and Chong's next movie, which was the second movie in their installment. And put them all in the pool, and they're all made out of plastic. They weren't real, but they used pictures that I gave them to show them, because I had these sensimilla plants that not a lot of people back in those days saw that or knew about that. And the pot quality started getting better. And of course, in Humboldt, I've got like some Humboldt from 1979 that was, Sensi that was great, because that's where all the good shit was coming from. A little bit of Maui Wowie too, a couple other places, but most of the stuff coming out of Mexico had a lot of seeds in it and had been crushed, or like I said, the Colombian gold, or the Thai stick that came in, and there's Colombian gold, and you can, I don't know if the camera can even see it, but there we go. And it has a couple seeds in it, but that was from 1978. But it was all crushed. It was like squished.
Yeah,
so,
like in the brickweed that you would.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what that happened. And
Yeah.
and it's and because of that, I think, like with Bob Marley used to do that too, where he buried it a little bit. It turned to THC to CBD, or the cannabinoids that got real stony. So your pot got stony.
It tends to degrade a little bit into something that'll make you more couch locked.
Yeah, I didn't like that so much. I like the higher high, but that was what it was like back in those days. You got what you got. There was no dispensaries or a choice. And now there's too many goddamn names. There's like Skittles, Boy Scout, Girl Scout, whatever cookies, and like I get the idea, but it seems very similar. I mean, I have a hard time knowing. I mean, I see the differences, and I can taste them, and obviously, as a connoisseur, and I use these little glass pipettes, to smoke with, so I can do just a little bit dosing, as opposed to smoking a part of a joint or a whole joint. So I think that's a better way to connoisseur. But there's like too many varieties of things to choose from nowadays. I don't know.
Yeah, we've gone from the opposite end of the spectrum. I mean, back in the day, like you're saying, you had brickweed, and that was like it. Or you go to now and you walk into a dispensary, and there's 100 different types of cannabis, dried flower cannabis, that you can choose from. And I mean, I'm not going to complain too much about that, but it is nice to have the choice. But yeah, it can be a little overwhelming. Now, when you started filming in 2017, which of your cannabis interviewees made predictions that have completely missed the mark? Because the film you started filming in 2017 and it came out in 2024.
Patty? I mean, because when I saw that question, I thought to myself, I don't know. I mean, well, some people like talking about, how it can. Well, the South Africans, they were using it for building materials. I know in Ecuador, we interviewed the museum curator there at the Cannabis Museum, and it was not Ecuador. It was
Ushuaia, Uruguay.
Uruguay, the first country that legalized cannabis.
Yes.
And he was talking about all these, things that can be made from. And sure enough, they make plastic parts for cars, but it hasn't been embraced as much as I think they or we hoped it would be, as far as for things other than just getting high and whatnot. For building and fuel. I think it's still not there. And I think also a lot of people say, well, the stigma will be less. And no, there's still stigma. We still need to get the word out. We still need to help people see documentaries like Nectarball, Story of Cannabis, so that they can, show their parents and say, or other people that vote, so we could get these bills passed and descheduled. Back in the early, the 1979 through 81, we would have a smoke-in on campus at UCSD, and we'd give out hundreds of joints, and we did it right. We put posters out, say, come after the watermelon drop, exactly this time, on this day, and we put the posters out that day, and it said, don't legalize, decriminalize. That's what we always thought. I mean, what was that palm tree? Is that tomato plant legal or illegal? No. Why is this? So it still needs to be descheduled. A lot of people predicted by now it would be, illegal all across the world, or at least in the United States. So in that case, some people missed the mark, and the prediction of how long it's going to take is still taking time. And as you know, even recently, people say, oh yeah, the new administration is going to help make it legal. No, they're just making up all kinds of other excuses and lying to us. And it's still Schedule 1, and the DEA could take years more. So people have missed the mark on that, number one, from my perspective. Patty, what do you think? Anything that come to mind to you?
Yes, like people like Steve D'Angelo would say, they wouldn't make these bold predictions. They would say, we're at a crossroads where it's up to us to make a decision on which way to go. And nobody really had any idea of what humanity was willing to do in regards to the cannabis plant. One issue is the banking issue. And we were told that a lot of the growers would have to have cash stuffed in storage rooms because they couldn't put it in a bank. And it's an and they can't have guns to protect themselves. And so it was a very, and I think it still is a very negative situation for people involved in the industry. It's very unsafe.
Yeah, banking just needs to change. I think they're starting to a little. I don't know. I've been hearing stuff. I've had friends and relatives that have been trying to get that worked out with the banking thing, and it's still kind of
that banking thing is it's so frustrating because at the federal level they say, well, because it's not legal federally, they won't banking isn't really an option, which I guess is a decision the banks are making. But even for myself as a partner in Canada, I often have, through banking partners, have run into issues because a lot of things like Stripe, for instance, are US based. And then they're like, oh, you have cannabis in the name of something, you must be selling it or whatever. And then every few months, I feel like my account gets suspended and I have to argue with them and appeal and be like, I have an audio podcast that's educational. I don't sell weed or anything, but like because of those laws in the States, it affects people elsewhere as well, because so many of those partners that you use to produce a show like Bite relies on platforms that are US based. And so I'd really love to see that change too.
Yeah.
And I'm sure.
And also shadow banned. I mean, sure, you and us, all of us, we can't seem to get the word out about the documentary. I said, look, we're not selling pot.
Can't get
we're not selling our tinctures or our Nectarball or anything, but someday maybe. But until then, it's just T-shirts or a hat or selling a DVD, or in your case, podcasts and broadcast. We put it; it's out there on Amazon Prime. Why in the heck can't they? Why can't we say it? Just because the word cannabis is in there, we can't advertise it? And they want our money. They'll take our money and then say, "Oh yeah," but then
They sure will.
They limit how many people actually get to see it.
Right.
It's like you're not getting your full value.
Yeah, it's
Just
still a
because it's
pretty
cannabis.
frustrating space to operate in because of some of those pretty strict limitations around scheduling in the States and the banking system and the rest of it. Any good news? Like, have there been any developments in the cannabis space that surprised you or any of your experts that you interviewed?
Patty's thinking. I can see her.
Yeah, I can see the wheels turning, but it's also a little telling that you're like, nothing comes to mind immediately.
I mean, getting it on more getting our show on more platforms. That's slowly happening. But go ahead.
When our show first, when we were filming it, I think it was around 2018, and we videotaped Nurse EMAC, and we were so impressed by her knowledge and her brilliance. And she came from the pharmaceutical industry. She was a representative for the pharmaceutical and Anthem, medical. And we asked her to speak at our local San Carlos, that's where we live in San Diego, group at the local library, and she did, and the library was packed with mostly seniors, because that's the segment who can really use it, and they really wanted to learn. And I thought that was eye-opening. I thought, this is great. And that was my focus when I was editing, is for mainly the elders and the seniors who are in pain and need a balm for their shoulders and their aches and pains.
Cannabis cookie or drops or tinctures or.
And I think that's the one glimmer of hope, is that when we were in Texas, we weren't in Texas. We were in Ecuador with some people from Texas and New York. And one of the ladies was an older woman in her early 80s, and she complained about arthritis. And I said, why don't you try some of this? And it was a little container of cannabis that we had been able to obtain in the park from a vendor. Amazing.
So it said, you know, it's got eucalyptus and all the good stuff in it, but it said on the jar, you know, cannabis.
I used it, and it was an immediate, spontaneous relief for her. And I know that she didn't vote for Kamala, right? But it's the inroads you make with people and to try and open their minds about the benefits of this plant.
Especially after they've been taught.
Heard.
Well, especially since they've been taught their whole lives when they were at that age that it was, you know, the devil and reefer madness and marijuana assassin youth crap. So they, for them to start waking up like a friend's mother that's, again, in the 80s, 70s, late 80s, early 80s, whatever. She said the first time she ever got some sleep from some of our nectar bomb, she just put it on some of her, she said she hadn't had sleep like that for 8 years. And I'm like, wow. So her son, you know, so that's our little anecdotal tests, and we're seeing that, yeah. And people say that, you know, and a lot of the medicinal abilities and helping people sleep. You know, then there's the CBD stuff, and then it's all out there, but that doesn't work as well as if you don't have a little THC mixed in there. You get the full spectrum, then it helps your endocannabinoid system much, much better. As you know, as a cook, you got to use the whole plant. So some of these things are a little, you know, and there's a lot of course, con artists out there trying to miracle this and that, and then they're only using CBD, and it may not even be that real, or who knows what.
Yeah, funny you bring that up, because I used to work at a dispensary a few years ago. We were the first legal dispensary in my town, and some of my favorite customers, I've mentioned this numerous times on the show, but my favorite customers were often the seniors that would come in because they asked the best questions. They were really curious, and they listened to what you had to say, and they were so grateful for the help that you gave them. And they were having to overcome all this stigma just by walking through the doors of that dispensary. But several times, some of these folks would come in and show me a bottle and be like, this is what I need. And it would be like something they'd bought off the internet that was basically a super expensive bottle of hemp oil that you could buy at like any grocery store, because it was just like your hemp seeds made into an oil, which was like, you know, it's good for you, but it's not cannabinoids. Like, yeah. And I just thought of all, like, so many scams out there, and I just felt so bad for these folks, but they're like, honestly, so curious and want to learn more about this plant. And they fall into two categories. I find some seniors are like really interested and want to know more and want to, you know, live better through the benefits of cannabis. And some of them are just like, nope, not interested. Don't want to talk to me about it. So
Yeah.
it really depends. But if you have a friend that's been using topicals or cannabis in some form that's been super helpful, you know, slowly it's that word of mouth that really, you know, spreads the word. And yeah.
If it didn't work, even the stuff that's minimal, you know, quality for an expensive price, if it didn't work, people wouldn't be buying it and talking about it and using it. So we'd know that. And in your case, you had high quality products, so that when these people tried those, they were like, wow, this is way better. It's like Rick Simpson.
Yeah.
You know, so people are like, wow, this, you know, and whether you make it yourself, which we do, because I can trust the quality of my organic gardening and don't throw much, like 3 or 4 plants, or, you know, I might get a couple ounces, whatever, and I can make enough medicine that I can share with my friends and relatives and use it. But some people are still, like you said, scared of using it, especially if they're older, or if they're having problems. Like I had 3 friends with that horrible glioblastoma brain tumor, whatever, the one that kills everyone but 5% within 5 years.
Wow.
And we had 3 friends. Of the 3 friends, 2 used cannabis products in addition to doing the same. All 3 of them did Western medicine and had surgeries and did chemo and all that stuff that they do for cancer. But 2 of them used cannabis in addition, and the one that didn't passed away within about a couple of years ago, and the other 2 are still alive. So that's anecdotal. I'm not saying it's a cure or anything, but it definitely helped some people survive and live longer. I don't know, you know, I wouldn't say they're necessarily cancer free, because I think it's a pretty bad one, but they're doing better than the people that didn't use cannabis. So there's some benefits. I mean, some people are so, you know, cancer ridden no matter what they do. It's not going to help.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, that goes back to the idea that it's not miraculous. It's not going to cure everything. But if it's something that you can add to your toolbox to help with whatever other tools you're using to overcome something, then why not?
Yep, just like in our documentary, and Patty will attest to this. And Granny, what was she would be giving out pot brownies to the AIDS victims to help them.
Yes.
Brownie
The Brownie
Mary.
Mary. Yeah.
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 I'm thinking Granny Mary, who walks
Yeah.
around and was against money and politics. So, but anyway,
Oh, that was Granny D.
yeah, Granny D. But anyway, go ahead, Patty.
Yes. So those are the true heroes. People like Brownie Mary and Dennis Perone, and people who and Ed Rosenthal, people who put themselves out there.
Jack Hare, etc.
Even in the line of fire at the time, because that was a tough place to be at the time, espousing marijuana, cannabis, which is
Putting yourself in the headlights of the government to go after you and prosecute you and put you in jail. There's a lot of great groups out there. Last Prisoner Project, 40 Tons. A lot of people trying to get everybody out. There's still people, believe it or not, that are in there. Even though Joe Biden pardoned a lot, and I think even Trump did a couple. But you gotta get these people out. It's ridiculous that they're in jail still for a couple joints, or even if they were caught, selling a couple ounces or whatever. That's still ridiculous. Again, it's a plant, for God's sake, and let's get these people out anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's very true. Now I'm switching gears just a little bit. I'm very curious because your film did focus quite a bit on the American cannabis experience, but obviously you spoke to people all over the world. And were there any international perspectives that you found that were worth emulating in the US, or just different approaches?
Besides you great people in Canada that made it legal for the whole country, that was brilliant.
Yeah. We still don't have lounges though yet, so I'm
that's coming. We did have one guy that we interviewed in San Diego, who was a doctor, a scientist, was helping formulate and get the most out of the plants. And he said he's going to Canada because he can't study it here in universities in America so easily. So he was going to go to Canada. So it was a brain drain going to Canada right after you guys legalized cannabis. So we saw that happening. That's interesting.
Pat? Was there anything else? Because I'm personally I don't have experience with them myself, but I'm curious about like the clubs that you see in other parts of Europe.
South Africa, yeah, that was pretty cool. We didn't interview all of the guys there, but they had the cannabis lounge and the dispensary all in one. But the lounges would have like a lot of games. A lot of people came to socialize, and then they'd go in the back and buy a little, come bring back, and some of them they had dab rigs you could borrow. Whereas there's one here in San Diego called Sessions Bay, first cannabis lounge that opened in San Diego area, and
only because on indigenous land, let's say.
Yeah, well, but it's here, and they have a dispensary downstairs, and then different lounge areas all around the place. And then do some entertainment, and otherwise people just sit around and they get food from a restaurant down below if people want to eat. And some of it's cannabis inspired, and
the drinks are cannabis infused,
non-alcoholic. It's like one guy said, yeah, you could you go in a dispensary or you go into a lounge. Everybody's chill and everybody gets along. You can have discussions and arguments, but no one gets in a fight. Whereas you go in a regular bar, people are fighting all the time. And stuff. So it's very, very chill. So of all the, I like the ones in South Africa were kind of the coolest. I found because they were, they weren't trying to okay, you got to rent this bong or this dab rig or whatever. I remember trying dab the first time in the Emerald Cup in 16. Like, oh my God, this stuff, and Patty too the next year. It's like, wow, this stuff is super. Why would anybody do that? Take 20 joints and make them into one joint. It's like too much.
No, I'm the same with you. I find as I get older, my tolerance also decreases. So
easier to get higher a cheap date.
Well, along the way, we visited Paris as well, and we were looking for some kind of a cannabis connection there. It was not to be found. Although when we were wearing our hats, there were quite a few people who said how much they liked our hats. And
Right.
well, like maybe we were the connection, but we weren't. But I
Yeah.
mean, the people of the world want and need it, and yet it's being stifled still by oligarchs because they don't want people to wake up.
Yeah, very true. There is probably something behind that because they don't want their people to be too aware lest we come together and resist. So
Yep. Question authority.
yeah,
Question authority,
Which
right?
just
That
happened
part
with
needs to
Jimmy
wear question
Kimmel.
authority. What?
yeah,
We saw what just happened with Jimmy Kimmel when a massive protest, and now he's back on the air after his little suspension. And so that was
Stephen Colbert and a lot of these guys. Freedom of the press and the whole thing is same thing with anything that wakes people up like mushrooms, LSD, the newer ones people. It's just everything back in the day. It's because when you're awake, you tend to question, and protest if something bad's happening. Whereas they keep you asleep, you'll be a nice compliant human being that doesn't question authority, and they get you to let the corporations ruin our planet,
yeah,
and exploit it. And there's a lot of people crossing borders because there's now 8 billion people. For God's sake, you guys, there's 8 billion plus people. And how can that not make an effect? When you were born, there was probably 2 or 3 billion people. That's it. Look how much and the first billion it took till 1864 or something like that. So it's just exponential. You can't comprehend it, so therefore you don't see it. And all you see is the after. Why are all these people coming, into Canada and America and all? They're trying to get off. They're trying to just stay alive. The human species, it's like any other life form, selfish and by inheritance, it has to eat food. If it has to fight for the food because they don't have enough, or they have to go somewhere and risk their lives to get the food, they got to go. I mean, that's just the way it is. There's just too many people. Number one.
yeah, yeah.
So that's why we didn't have kids. Part of the reason, I should say.
Right. Now, did either of you, I don't remember from the documentary, but did either of you spend any time in Germany? I guess Germany legalized after the film was out, but
Yeah.
because
No,
I'm curious about their
Mhm.
grow clubs that they have because they don't have like a retail system at all at this point. Even though they've been legal for just over a year now. But I am curious about their grow clubs because I just feel like it's such a natural way to build community around the plant instead of it being super commercialized. And just
Right.
wondering if you had any experience with that.
Well, Amsterdam would be the closest, and we went around other parts of Holland too, and did that kind of stuff. So we found that to be very interesting. That they had both the clubs, but then where you bought the pot, had to be separate. Like you can't, and then you had to go buy a pipe somewhere else. And I thought, man, these guys are like, wow, your pipe has to be a big hit because the cheapest pipe you can buy next door is like €2. And I'm like, yeah, you can sell these for a third of that price, or less. But yeah,
and it was illegal to
Germany.
grow there. It's legal to grow there. So one of our interviewees said, yeah, so it's supposed to magically appear at the back door of the dispensaries somehow.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah, it's an odd little thing of their system over there that it's worked for a long time, but it is
Weird.
odd.
Yeah, it needs to be more like Germany in that sense. But then, like I've been to Germany several times, but not since they've legalized cannabis. So that in Canada and a few other countries, we'd love to, if we got to do a series, and we'd like to do a lot more interviews and maybe come up and see you and get some people interviewed up in your neck of the woods, and your luminaries up there, cannabis luminaries. So
Yeah, absolutely. Now, just I want to be mindful of your time because we've been talking for a little bit, but can you tell people where they can find Nectarball out there in the world? I will link to everything in the show notes as well so that they can find it pretty easily.
But yeah, hopefully you guys can take a look at the 1-minute trailer at nectarball.com. Also, you can see a 3-minute video put together about my collection, the Nectarball collection itself. That's all free. And then I would encourage you to sign up for Patty's free Substack newsletter, what are you calling it these days, even though it's cannabis related and also about love?
Real life love stories.
Oh, nice.
Real life love stories. That's her Substack newsletter. Again, all this is free. It's just our way of sharing with the world ways to help the world be a better
Now,
place, both with
one other
cannabis
thing
and with
I wanted to
love.
ask about is you've referenced this Nectarball collection a few times. So you have, from what I understand, a collection of buds from various stages of your career in cannabis. How do you preserve them?
Not well enough.
Oh,
Back in the day when I first got my 1972 little bud, I was like, I don't know, 14 or 13 and a half, 14. And I put it in a curad basket, a bag in a little lunch, they didn't even have sealing wheels in those, just a little plastic lunch bag. And that got kind of beat up pretty good. I think I got a picture of it, a couple pictures of it. So like, I think that might be. Oh, here it is. This is the Acapulco Gold from 1972. If it'll focus again, and so not particularly good looking. That's like the lids or junk we used to get, but there was on a little package with on a spear at the time. So it's in seal meals. Now it's little seal meal things. So and that's the Humboldt. And then Black Afghanistan hash plant from 1978. All my greatest hits are from the 70s.
right.
Late 70s and then early 80s. I got some nice stuff then. But people like Robert Clark and other geneticists were very interested in it. I had Robert Clark over at the house. I showed him the collection, and only a handful of people have ever seen it, and they loved loved it, and they wanted little pieces of it for DNA extraction, so that they could help figure out the landrace history and stuff, the project they were in. But it turns out that project fell apart and was not good. Bad guys are trying to steal the DNA, just like the woman at the Emerald Cup I went to at the history section said, yeah, she was in charge of the Lakota seed bank, and people like Monsanto were sending spies to try and steal the corn and squash seed, old genetics. So the genetics on this is very, very special. I tried giving the whole collection to the Smithsonian at one time back in the 80s, but because it's federally illegal, you can't even ship it across state lines, so I couldn't do that, and then put it in safety deposit box or whatever. But so it's not kept, like it should be frozen supposedly. But at this point, it's mummies. The DNA is still there, it's still viable, so people can do that if they want. I don't think the seeds are, but maybe
That would be interesting to try and pop those seeds. See what happens.
Some of the people I've talked, Ed Rosenthal thinks I can, and there's a couple people that said that they popped some old seeds from the early 70s, even maybe even 60s. But I've talked to a couple people. They say that, and that their collections of seeds are worth hundreds of millions because it's that rare.
Right.
Because those land races haven't been polluted. Supposedly during Operation Green Sweep, the government dumped a bunch of hemp pollen over there and screwed up the land races up in Humboldt and the Emerald Triangle. I don't know if that's true or not, but whatever, the land races now aren't as pure as they used to. Now everything's cross-contaminated with indica, sativa, who knows what, some hemp, rudella, whatever. I'm not a scientist.
Most stuff is hybrid at this point these days. Yeah. And there's some advantages to that, but it is nice.
Well, it'd be good. Nice. Panama Red. I had a little Panama Red from '78 that Swami goes, man, that was my favorite because I used to laugh so hard on that. So there's, some of that stuff's lost to in nowadays, but if they can resurrect it, like I say in the movie The Legend of 420, which I was in, but I didn't show my face. I showed the collection there, and I said, maybe it's like Jurassic Park, and they can resurrect the DNA and make these old land races come back alive. So I know it's possible, but whether someone wants to spend the money to do that or not. So I'm willing to, anybody scientist-wise wants a piece of this, they are welcome to it, and free of charge. To help the world be a better place with cannabis in it. Again, same thing with our movies. And see if people want to go to nectarball.com, it'll point them out. Otherwise, our Nectarball, The Story of Cannabis is on Amazon Prime. redcoraluniverse.com. The Canna Minutes and Fighting Cancer with Cannabis is on citizengreen.tv. Binge TV.com is also a place you can see all our movies, including our mountain biking ones and how-to shows and pretty much everything other than the short films. Everything's generally a half hour.
And is everything also available on Vimeo? Because that's where I watched the Nectarball documentary.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's if you go to nectarball.com.
Right.
We charge $4.20. It helps us try and get some of our money back. We'd appreciate it to do that. Or if you want to buy the DVD, it's $18.88. For you, of those of you out there that have a DVD player.
Yeah. You know what? These things are making a resurgence these days.
Like
things like DVD
records.
players, CD players, vinyls, like pretty popular. I think
even
people
VHS, can you believe it? I've heard about that.
Yeah.
We've
But
got
I was just
old
asking
titles on
because
VHS.
not everybody has Amazon Prime, but you can always just go on and rent it for $4.20, which is very reasonable, a lot less than going to your movie theater, and watch it over on Vimeo as well.
Commercial free too.
Yes.
So yeah. So if you want to help us out, go to nectarball.com, like under my name here.
Yeah.
We really help it. Really, it would help out, and we're gonna try and come up with some more merchandise here soon too, like a hat here. That was pretty popular. People love it because even got little sparkles in there, so it looks like crystals. But the woman that makes those, it's kind of hard to get those made, and it's not cheap, especially if you get a hemp hat. So we're trying to figure out a way of doing that. Otherwise, it'd be like $50. Just to make the hat. But anyway.
And then one other thing that I was going to mention is that my latest focus has been on editing a full feature documentary called North American Journey. And I've been implementing AI tools for that, including the creation of music, Americana music, and it's in little segments. So back in 1986, Mark and I, when we were young and cute, took off on a nationwide adventure up the coast, through Canada, Alaska, back through Canada again, winding down and around all the national parks. And we went, the peak of the journey is Denali, and also a grizzly bear attack in the Yukon. So I've sent this off to a few film festivals, and it's won Best Feature in 2 of them, and it has been selected in 2 others. So
very cool.
Something there. It's a return.
The AI helps make that old VHS footage, because that's all we had in those days. VHS in 1986 camcorder. That wasn't even a camcorder. It was that we have a backpack with the deck, and then the camera's small, and we backpacked with it. With the grizzly bears and everything all around North
terrifying.
America. All the way down.
The grizzly bears.
That was a do or die. And and Pat wrote all the lyrics and the music, and then the AI does the music. I'm like, wow, this is good stuff. And then she also, does her lyrics and poems. And then you hear us talking just like we did when we're out there. Hey, wow, look at that. Let's go climb that. Or let's go do this. Or look at that waterfall. Or, and so it's just 2 innocent 20-somethings having a good time traveling North America, and then all the way down to Key West, Florida, and back to San Diego. So 25,000 miles in 9 months. We didn't just forget what day or week it was, or where we were sometimes, but we forgot what year it was at one point. What year is this?
Yeah.
It takes us
on vacation then.
It takes you back to a time, 1986, when we met a lot of interesting people. Not everybody had the same political beliefs, but we still got along. And it shows what's possible now. You can still enjoy the company of other people, whether you agree with them or not.
And share a meal.
Yeah.
Bite me.
Yes, I agree. And you know what? I think that's a beautiful place to end, because one thing that cannabis is wonderful is does help connect people, but just that reminder also that food can bring people together. Doesn't matter if you have different, beliefs about politics or whatever, we can still all get along. So So with that, I just want to thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And listeners, do check out Nectarball, their documentary. And it sounds like you have a lot of other fun projects coming up as well. So I'll link to all those in the show notes. And I just wanted to say thank you once again for your time today.
Well, thank you too. And Nectarball is a great place, but also newunique.com. So that's another great www thing. But you did great, Margaret. Thank you so much for having us on with you. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.